The COYGIG Pod
on Off the Ball
in association with Cadbury, official snack partner of the Republic of Ireland women's national team.
Katie McCabe, a huge goal.
I'm very proud of the team's performance.
We're going to go out there to beat them. We're going to try and beat them.
Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the COYGIG podcast. A very tired Kathleen McNamee coming to you bright and early this morning to look back on what was not exactly the game that we were all hoping for last night in Tala, as Ireland fell to 2 goals in the first 20 odd minutes to Wales, finished 2-0 on the night, and possibly one of the worst performances we've seen out of this team in a very, very long time. Joining me to look back on last night is also a very tired Karen Duggan. So if we slip up at all, we apologise. I personally had about 5 hours sleep. So Karen, how are you?
Not only am I tired, I'm cranky after watching that performance. So
that's the thing. If we'd absolutely walloped though, I wouldn't mind too much getting up this morning. But it felt especially painful having to get up after watching that display. I know you were doing comms last night for the game, but having had the opportunity to sleep on it, has your mind changed any more about how awful a display it was?
No, I think we have to be honest and look at it for what it was. And I wouldn't be going too far inwards on Eileen or selections and stuff like that. All of the players on the pitch have certain responsibilities, and from the outset, I just felt that it was sloppy. We played risky passes into congested areas, and Wales were better than we expected. And I think we were taken aback a little bit by that. I think we expected to go out and dominate possession, and there was too many individual mistakes, and that's kind of something you need to look inwardly at as a player. Everyone, really. I thought if you're looking at good performances, they're few and far between. I think Jessu, over the course of the 2 games, it's been really bright to see her back. I think Ruesha Littlejohn yesterday getting through 90 minutes after looked like she really hurt herself on her Achilles in the Italy game. I thought in the first half she was one of the only people who seemed to bring energy to the press, but she was kind of left isolated in that a little bit. So I felt for a little bit in that regard.
Yeah, it was interesting. Last night, I just put out a tweet saying that we were recording at 7 a.m. this morning, if anyone had any questions or anything that they wanted us to discuss. And a lot of people pointed out Ruesha and her performance and how well she performed. I was speaking to her post-match. I know you were as well. Some of that stuff's embargoed over the next couple of days. But to give you all a sneak peek, no one tell the FAI. She was quite reflective after the game compared to how Ruesha normally is. You know, normally there's a bit of banter with her. There, you know, she's kind of talking about different elements of the game where she can kind of pull a bit of a joke out of it. But there wasn't really the opportunity to do that from last night because the performances were so bad. Also found it talking to Eileen Gleeson, without even being asked about the formation, that was one of the first things that she pulled out. She said, I don't think it was selection necessarily. I don't think it was formation. Yes, those things affect us because we're missing senior players, or Nifahi having to pull out at the very, very last minute after putting in a player of the match performance on Friday. It's always going to throw things a little bit, but she was very keen to pick out the small things, you know, the ball handling mistakes, the passes going awry, the fact that no one could get any clear ball at any stage, which was a thing I really noticed, especially in that first 20 minutes, half an hour. Just how disjointed we looked. We looked like we hadn't ever kicked a ball together. And it's not like there were that many new faces on the team that it should look like that.
No, when we had the ball, it looked like the pitch was 10 square meters, like it was tiny. Wales just pressed us, and we just didn't deal with it very well. And it's hard to know where that comes from. I think that we weren't assured at the back. I think we were a lot more patient against Italy, and we drew Italy out a little bit more, and it allowed midfield a little bit more space. And obviously when you lose Nifahi and you don't have Denise, and Louise started on the bench, you're looking at Rusha as kind of the senior player there, and she's up in the 10. It's hard for her to kind of dictate the pace of play from the back. So you needed someone to take control of that back there. And unfortunately, no one did. Usually we'd expect it to be Katie, but she looked a little bit off it. Over the course of the 2 games, I have to say, I think you'd forgive her a little bit, having come from sold out Emirates and a really stressful part of the season. Obviously, we talk about where Arsenal are in that title race an awful lot, and Katie's been so consistently featured in that team. She's such a mainstay. It is coming down a certain level, so she's coming down a certain level, and it can be hard to adapt, but we kind of expect to see more from her.
I wonder, is part of that missing having someone like Denise on the pitch, where even
share the burden a little bit,
of
leadership, not even just of talent, because we had plenty of talented people on the pitch. I think in terms of sharing the burden of setting a tone. Yeah, definitely.
And also, whenever you watch the 2 of them on the pitch, they're not the sort of players that traditionally stay completely in their lane when it comes to their position. So if they need to run out of position to help get a ball back or help with the press, they'll do it. Whereas it's a lot harder for Katie to do that when she is by herself. She definitely looked a lot very frustrated out on the pitch last night.
Yeah, and I suppose there was changes as well, and you have to form partnerships when you're playing in the 4-5-1. You're working with the winger and you're working with the inside midfielder and your centre back, and they were all changed, I guess. So it was new. So maybe she felt that she had to restrict her game a little bit in order to help the players around her through the game. But I think the frustration filtered through the team. We didn't have space. We didn't have any space or ideas, and maybe we just kind of became more and more conservative, and they were able to really pick off passes in kind of the middle third of the pitch. I thought we made Sophie Ingle look like an absolute superstar last night. I thought she always looked like she had space and she was calm on the ball and she was able to spray it. And obviously she's a quality player, but I gave her an awful lot of respect, and I don't think you can do that. And we couldn't lay a finger on Jess Fishlock, who I was really, really impressed with. I mean, we talk about Niamh Fahy's age and people ask about her, but Fishlock was 37, and for me, she was the best player on the pitch.
She was so good, and I think you definitely saw it's something I chatted to Denise about on Monday, but the level of preparation that you put into just even physically to play an NWSL game, in terms of the amount of running you have to do compared to maybe a WSL team. You definitely saw that stand to a player like Fishlock. She was totally not off the pace at any point, got her goal, was arguably in the right place. Someone should have been on her. She shouldn't have been left open like that. I
just found that she was able to play with freedom, and she was able to move from the left and drift inwards, and we'd love to be able to have left Katie to do that, and we just couldn't. We couldn't release her from her position in any way to get her further up the pitch to cause trouble. She had some nice combinations with Ruth and Leanne briefly in the first half, but we would love to have seen us play with the freedom that Wales were allowed to let their best player free. I also thought that Hughes up top was bullying us. Every time she ran at our centre backs, it looked like they were in trouble. And again, it was a new centre back pairing, but yeah, it was definitely something to look at, and we exposed a few weaknesses that it's good for us because it gives us time to work on them. But also going into League A, I think that it just exposed certain areas that, if we are short a player or two from the squad, could be a little bit of concern. We're not used to seeing us be as shaky at the back. So hopefully it was a one-off. Like, we can't say that this has been a pattern, but there was certainly a lot of red flags on show.
Yeah, and if you're to look at the players, I suppose, that hopefully will be coming back, you have Niamh Fahy. Louise Quinn will hopefully be fit and have a bit more game time under her belt. Like, that's the first minute she's played since the end of January, and she automatically made an impact. It really seemed like in the first half in particular, that Wales were targeting those balls into the box, which isn't something that we would normally see with teams against Ireland, because we know we have that aerial height and that we are able to defend, whereas we just seem to fall apart a little bit. Kind of expected a bit more of Caitlin Hayes in that situation, because she was quite good in those games that we played before Christmas. So yeah, she'll hopefully come back. Niamh will be fit. Then Aoife Mannion still has to come back in. If she can get a run of form, that would be really positive. Farrelly, Denise O'Sullivan, all those players hopefully should bring
and we haven't really spoken about the fact that we're missing Sinead Farrelly, and I think that she's would be perfect for that 10 position and drop Ruesha back into the 8, because they're both very game intelligent players and they'll know how to fill the spaces. And then you've got Denise who can do box to box as well. So I think just as good as all of the young players did at international level, a lot of it is to do with how you can create space for your best players, and those players are intelligent enough to do that, to bring in our Katies and Heathers more into the game.
If you were to pick one area of particular concern, would it be that back line if we are missing the likes of Louise and Niamh?
It's hard to say it's a full area of concern, because it really did feel like a one-off that we were so overrun in that area, and we looked like we could concede every time they came forward. But that comes from the players in front of them as well, and the spaces. So I think we got shaky, we retreated back, and then instead of people taking responsibility for players, we were caught ball watching a little bit. So it was just something that filtered through the team. It affected far too many players. And again, I think there's a lot of reflection for the players to do on their performance. Obviously, knowing Eileen, she will mull over this and watch it over and over again and pick out various areas that, will be addressed in camp, but there's only a certain amount of contact time that you have there. So, it could be a confidence thing. But yeah, we'll just have to see how the next thing goes and hope that it's not a feature. Obviously we got a little bit rose tinted in League B, looking at us dominating all those teams. And Wales were a very good side. I think they really took us by surprise. But Eileen spoke about it after the game as well. If you look at, maybe they're ranked below us now because we got to the World Cup, but if you look at the profile of the players on their team, a lot of the profile is as good, if not higher across the board than what we have. And a lot of game time in those legs as well. So I think we underestimated them a little bit.
Emma Carroll was saying the same thing. She was like the one person consistently last week who was like, I don't think people realise what we're going into with this game, and that we should be really careful that it doesn't end up being a bit of a hammering. So I don't think she wanted to be right, but I will give her credit where it is.
She was right. It was a hammering. I think 2-0 was as good as we were going to get away with, as much as Caitlin had a ball cleared off the line by Ruesha and had another chance in the second half. I felt that some of the openings that Wales created were really good if they just gotten their final pass right. So really positive night for Wales from their perspective. They'll be going into League B hoping to dominate again.
But that was the annoying thing watching it, because they were playing the way I expected us to play, in that I wasn't totally sure where those goals were going to come from because of how we played on Friday and the fact that we were changing things up quite a lot in the forward line. And I expected us to be more physical, to be pressing, to do all the stuff we normally would do, and then maybe see if we could improve a little bit in that final third.
The energy wasn't focused. The energy that we brought to the game was chaotic energy, as opposed to, bringing that kind of fire and directness to our play. So that's something that, again, that needs to be managed, because we're fit. We're definitely a fit team. I was really impressed by Jess Sue's engine, how Ruesha got through the game. It wasn't a fitness thing. The energy was there. It was just channeled in a way that we haven't seen us be in a very long time. we usually are a lot more, even defensively when we're under pressure, we're composed in that we know when to slow the game down, know when to speed it up, and we just let Wales dictate the tempo completely.
I am quite excited, if I was to take any of the positives that are possibly going from last night, to see if Jesu and Heather Payne can develop a bit more of a relationship and understanding of each other. Because there was a couple of small moments where one or the other would dispossess a Welsh player of the ball and they were getting a nice 1-2 going, and then it would either one of them would try to pass it off to someone else or their pass to the other just wouldn't work and we would lose the ball. But I do think that could be, just even in terms of speed alone between the two of them, that could be a really interesting threat from us, and also take some of the pressure off the other wing, which is obviously the one that the focus is normally on.
Yeah, and it's been a while since we've had the amount of people who are natural ball carriers on the pitch and who are willing to stand up a defender and go at them. And Jesu did that really well. And that allows the extra few seconds that Heather might need to get in to support the play. And obviously, the final ball mightn't have been there, but there were definitely glimpses that could work. And even if we do revert back and Heather becomes a fullback, I think that Jesu, even when she went into the pocket, she was a really good option there. And I think she has enough understanding of the game that when Heather comes in, she knows to create the space outside and things like that. So I would be excited to see that. I think the mark that Jesu made, having come back from such a long injury, was really good. I think it shows her maturity as a player. And obviously the fact that she's getting in on that West Ham team, which has improved significantly since the transfer window, it's a credit to her. And Heather has been a mainstay in the Everton team, and I think that shows. But it will take time to develop these things, but unfortunately, time's not now on our side.
No,
but again, that's a challenge for Eileen.
Yeah, so that qualifying draw is next week, March 5th, and then the friendlies, I think, are over, they start around the 9th of April, I think, and they're kind of that international week around there. So we'll get dates once we have a better idea of who we're actually playing and where we have to go. Hopefully somewhere sunnier and less rainy than it was.
I wouldn't fancy a trip to Spain, though, looking at last night.
No, definitely not. Although, I was going to say if we can hold Italy, and they did also beat them, but then they also got trashed by England. Yes, What was it, 5-1 or something? The 5-1. Final score.
Yeah. We tired them out. It's fine.
Yeah. It was all us. It will be really interesting to see. I don't really know out of any of those top teams who I would be most likely to face.
I think we do well against the more direct, your Norways and your Swedens and teams like that, the teams that rely a lot more on physicality, and we can stand up to that, and we know how to stand up to that. We might not know how to score against it, but we definitely know how to stand up to it. So I think we will see ourselves go back to a lot of the features that made us strong and got us to the World Cup, and I don't think there's any harm in that. I think that Eileen has to try stuff to bring us to the next level. So there might be some results in there that, we're watching behind our hands, but unfortunately that's just part of the process if we want to develop as a nation.
I was saying to someone last night at the game that I would love to see Bob Matty turn up to the Aviva, big sellout crowd. I don't really want to see the match. She could just kick a ball around for 90 minutes and we
100%. I'll pay good money for that one. It would be pretty cool, but I would be a little bit scared as well when you look at what the Wales midfield did to us last night. If you added Bon Matty into the mix there, it could be...
If you added any of the Spanish players, it could be very, very disastrous. So how do we look back on this international window? I think Gleeson's 100% record is gone. Last night was a mess by all accounts. Italy game, I thought was quite positive. I thought we were quite mature on the ball. As you said, we were patient. We broke them down. We didn't really show that we were going to score too many opportunities.
No, but for me, Italy are one of those technical teams that in the past we've done well against them in terms of results, but given the development that they've had, I thought that we might struggle with their technicality a bit, and we didn't at all. But then we came up against Wales, who they were just so assured in their passing and understood how to create space for each other and where their strengths lay, and taught us a bit of a lesson in that regard. So yeah, a very mixed bag, I would say. Knowing that we can put in assured performances, but also knowing that we have that, I would call it just a mental weakness. Like there's obviously a weakness there that we just couldn't get a grip on the game at all. So you have to look at things like players' calmness, players' confidence, players' leadership ability. These are not things you want to be calling into question. You want to be just working on tactics on the pitch. But yesterday's game, I couldn't put it down to tactics. It was just too much individual errors and not being able to recover from that and play our way into the game in any way.
Yeah. I wish.
But it's not all that. Not all that.
It's all that. It's all that. There was a great moment, because where the News Talk commentary is right in front of where RT does their commentary. So sometimes I get to see bits and pieces of what they're showing on the television. And there was a great moment where Eileen Gleeson was explaining something to Emma Byrne, and whatever Emma Byrne saw on the pitch, she did not like, and her face was like thunder, and I thought she was about to run on, and then she gave the most brilliant eye roll at what she had just seen as well. And I just thought of all the time
I'd say that's hard for Emma as well. I'd say she's well used to when she was on the pitch, she'd let her feelings be known, and to be honest, we could have done with that, a little bit of that yesterday. And we chatted to Rusha a little bit. Obviously there's a lot of young players there, and you don't want to be giving each other a rollicking. Whereas, sometimes when you have more senior players on the pitch, you can go at each other a little bit and it can rile each other up like we used to do a little bit, and it was no problem because we knew after the match it wouldn't be an issue. But you have to be conscious of the players that are around you as well and give them time to, become comfortable again in that international environment. And again, that will come in time. But there is a time and a place for that. And if Emma wants to let loose at them, I think she should. And I think if senior players want to do that as well, that's international level. Something needed to be said anyway.
I was surprised that there wasn't more talking going on the pitch.
They tried to pull it together, but then you saw Katie getting frustrated. And when that happens, you're worried about the implications. So I'd say she held her tongue a little bit as well. Again, just being considerate of the amount of young players or the players coming back in who hadn't been around for a while.
Yeah, even though they were possibly some of the best performances that we had in the likes of Jetu. We got to see Emily Murphy for the first time ever on a pitch for Ireland. What were your initial thoughts? I know she didn't get a whole lot of time, but
yeah, to be honest, it was really hard to tell. She looked like a very willing runner. She looked like she brought a lot of strength to it. Similarly, I thought when Carusa comes on, she offers that as well. So, look, it is good to have options. It was hard to tell because the balls into her weren't fantastic. But it was good to see that, she seemed confident when she came on, which, is half the battle for a young player. But yeah, we'll have to reserve judgment. But obviously, congrats to her on making her senior international debut. It's a special night for anyone. It was difficult circumstances for her, but hopefully it's the start of something new. But I would be just putting a pin in it for now until we see a little bit more.
That's very fair. And there is a lot more to come, hopefully, from her and other young players in the squad. If you were to pick a kind of ideal couple of teams that you would like to get in this draw on March 5th, I know we said Germany, Sweden in terms of the upper tier, but we're probably going to have a team or two that are very much along the same level as Wales as well, the likes of your Belgiums and stuff. Are we... I don't know, it's hard because I feel like we got to a stage where we were vaguely comfortable. And even when we were at the World Cup, I know the results didn't go our way, but the performances by and large were good. Whereas because this is the first time that we faced maybe higher opposition compared to some of the ones that we were facing in the Nations League, it throws a spanner in what our impression of the team is quite a bit.
Well, I think it throws a spanner in any it tempers expectations a little bit in how we will approach the League A games. I think that we have to approach them again as if we are the underdogs, because we do have so much work to do to get up to their level technically. So it's going to be a lot of back to basics in terms of who we'd like to play against. I'll be a little bit nervous about Belgium just because of how well they did that England game. It sticks with me a little bit how good they were in that game, and obviously how good England are. But yeah, I guess you'd be looking at, if you're looking at the upper teams, the likes of, oh God, it's hard after looking at the performance last night not to be a little bit scared going into it. But I guess like your Germany, even though traditionally they've always beaten us, but it'd be a great challenge, and a team that I think we never felt we let ourselves down against, even though we have lost against them, because we know what to expect against them. Norway, I guess, a similar kind of both big, strong team that we know we can stand up to. Who else is?
They're also sometimes a bit of a basket case, so you never know, we might get lucky.
Yeah, we love that. Love having that to talk about on the podcast as well. Yeah. So something like that would be fantastic.
Never,
and I guess we've shown ourselves against
Hansen looking like she was in a hostage video when she had to make that apology.
That was good stuff, to be fair. More of that. So any team who's in turmoil will take a bit of that.
Well, we're all perfectly calm.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting chatting to Jessu last night. She mentioned when she was talking about what went wrong, and she said that she thought that we aligned well with Italy because the formations were really similar, but because the formation was slightly different against Wales, they didn't really know what to do on the pitch. And I was like, that's a tiny bit worrying, in that surely there's conversations going on of these are the potential, because the lineup wasn't all that different from the Welsh side as to how they...
I think that was maybe just a line that you say after the match to kind of make yourself feel a little bit better, because what was Wales's formation last night pretty much matched us, except they played it 1-6 and we played 2, and I felt that we struggled to get that right, that we needed to get extra help from a winger in the odd time, and we needed to maybe step on a little bit, either Megan or Jessie Stapleton, who again I thought they both in patches did really, really well. So it's hard to like pinpoint players and say that such and such had a shocker. It was just, we were off it, we were just always off it. And I think that was a small thing. Not being able to deal with them overloading the midfield, and that should be something we should be able to deal with on the pitch, because you always know that you get your winger in, you get your 10 back when you need to, and then you get possession and you slow it down and you get back into shape. But it was just the chaotic energy just seemed to override anyone's football logic for the definitely 45 minutes anyway. So
yeah, there's no one I would pull out in that team individually and say,
they're getting dropped the next day or anything like that. No, absolutely not. It was
very much a collective. You're actually, the only people you can pull out are the ones who vaguely impressed.
Did well.
Yeah, and had moments like the likes of Jessu. And if she wants to keep doing that and maybe, I don't know, give some of it to all the other players ahead of the Nations League, we won't mind too much. Karen, thank you very much for getting up early to relive the trauma that was last night with me.
Don't make me do this again.
Yeah,
or Ireland.
Yeah, it's not up to me. It's up to Ireland. Hopefully we will get a nice draw in the Nations League.
Whatever a nice draw in League A looks like. Yeah, let's hope for that. I'm not sure there's such a thing, but we'll see. It'll be interesting. I'm excited to see who we get.
But I need something to hold on to until then. Thank you everyone for listening. Thank you all for the interaction last night during the game as well. It was very nice to be chatting away to some of you during the game about what was happening and how disappointed you were. If you ever want to get us, you can get us on Twitter at the COYGIG Pod. The COYGIG Podcast is sponsored by Cadbury, official snack partner to the Republic of Ireland women's national team. We will be back next week because we have lots of WSL action over the weekend. A nice little North London derby for us to sink our teeth in. For any of you Arsenal fans that may be panicking about the fact that Katie came off, she's fine according to Eileen Gleeson. She just felt a bit of tightness in her quad and they took her off as a precaution. So likely see her at the weekend. But for now, we will say goodbye. We hope you're all not too traumatized by last night, and hopefully there's more good times to come for Eileen Gleeson and her squad. Thanks for listening.
The COYGIG Pod on Off the Ball, in association with Cadbury, official snack partner of the Republic of Ireland women's national team.